Archbishop Matthew RAWCLIFFE. Please join me and some great guests as we take a journey where I will spread positive and enlightened messages to educate, heal, and help others as we chat about various subjects with the help of God. Tune in every second and fourth Thursdays at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific on Paranormal King Radio Network.
Hey everyone, how we doing out there tonight? Here with my co-host Ron, as always.
Yeah.
And we got a special guest tonight, Mr. Joe Franke.
Hello, everyone.
And we're gonna start it out as we always do. Ow. If I can stop dropping everything around. I've like dropped 5 things since we started the show, and it's been like 30 seconds. I'm going to start out with the St. Michael prayer as always. In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our defense against the wickedness and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. Do you, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and the other evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen.
Amen.
And we always start with that because, as well as you know, Joe, you got to have protections at all times, especially in this business.
Yeah, we're talking
absolutely.
Even just talking about it. I mean, you've I've had health issues because of what I do. I know you have, Joe. I know Ken has, Father Ken. I mean, it's sad to say, but it's what we got to deal with.
Well, it was a vocation for me. It's not a choice for me. I was meant to do this work. I'm convinced of that now, obviously by now. So I'll continue God's work until He's done with me.
I feel you. I was called back to it for sure. That was for sure. If you do this kind of work, it's not a job. That's not a job. That's not a job. I mean, I don't get paid. I've never been paid for an exorcism, and I never will be. I mean, that's blasphemy in our eyes, and to be paid for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll always take a donation for the order, but anything I do is always free of charge.
We never charge ever for an investigation.
No, never.
Most of the lectures I do at no charge. It gets costly because I'm traveling a lot, but
travel gets expensive.
They, if I do libraries or private organizations, they always give a donation to, my group, which is basically me and my buddy. I've been lecturing with him for 25 years.
There you go.
This is in addition to the foundation. This is my personal group, which is the Connecticut Paranormal Research Society. I founded that in '93.
Isn't that the one you guys are having the Paracon or something like that in Plattsburgh, or was it coming up?
No, I'm going to Plattsburgh representing the Warren Legacy Foundation.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was your group or
no. I'm going. Just Ken and I are going to represent the foundation.
Oh, right on. That's awesome. I wasn't sure what that was. I didn't know if you guys like with Ron. We did with S.P.I.R last weekend. We helped host the Upstate Conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Frank is putting on the, I think it's Dark Waters Paranormal Paracon. It's his first one.
Oh, he's the one, Frank's the one doing it. Okay. I wasn't sure who was I had no idea who was actually putting it on. That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, Frankie's putting it on, and we're going to have a booth for the foundation. Ken and I have some items that we're going to sell and auction off for the public.
Yeah, me and Ken talked about that the other day.
I've got a little Annabelle doll, little replica that we usually raffle off.
Creepy.
Yeah, my wife
says. I'm sorry, that doll just creeps me out. It always has. It always has.
That's not.
My wife hates it.
My grandmother used to have dolls like that back when I was a little kid. My Italian grandmother is like off the boat, spoke no English. I mean, but she had like a Raggedy Ann and a Raggedy Andy doll, and then I swear there's the creepiest things where they would follow you around the house. It's just their eyes were just. I still can't. It still creeps me out to this day.
Those porcelains are freaky, man.
Yeah, they are
freaky because they got that reflection about them, you know, in the dark. They're all crazy.
Dolls and clowns seem to irritate some people.
I don't do
scare some
clowns.
people.
I don't do clowns, man.
What's
Nope.
big fears of clowns, man?
I don't like clowns. I'll take my collar off and punch you in the face. You come at me like a clown. I don't care. Hey, I'll go to confession and be like, God, yeah, I punched him. I'm sorry. He came at me looking like a clown. I had to do it.
That'll be 10 Hail Marys and 10 Our Fathers, Bishop.
Yeah, no. Hey, I'll do it. I don't do clowns. Don't do them. You know it's bad when you're 10, like you got 11, 12-year-old kids and they find that out and then they start like jumping out of shit in the house and you're like, ah! You're like, try not to have a heart attack every other day. They're jumping out at you. My daughter's 12 and she's so good with that makeup. Like, creepiest clown. I won't even go near her. It was creepy. It was like, I know it was last year. She's like 11 at the time. Did her own makeup and everything. I was like, no, get away from me.
First encounter with a haunted doll.
My first encounter?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. Well, way back when I first met the Warrens and we were first in my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, we were invited back to their home. And that's when I received my first signed copy of, I've got it right here, actually. I'll show it to you.
Right
The Demonologist.
Oh, wow.
It's a little rough, but if I can show you.
Old school.
And Ed didn't sign. I think you can see it. Ed signed down here.
Yeah.
And Lorraine up here. Ed didn't autograph a lot of things.
No.
But
I've always heard that Lorraine was the one doing a lot of autographs. Ed was very seldom would autograph anything.
Yeah, well, after a lecture, Ed was I loved him to death. He was like a grandfather to me, but Ed was a little rough, and after the lectures, he just wanted to pack up and leave. So, okay, come on, Lorraine. And Lorraine,
that's me.
She was such a sweetheart. She called everybody honey, and she would stand there and take everyone's questions, and then Ed would be like, "Come on, Lorraine, let's go." And she's like, "Okay, I'm sorry."
She would stand there all night if you let her.
She would. Yeah,
that's
that's
probably why they went so well together, though.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely complimented one another.
That's probably why.
But I'm sorry, Ron, to answer your question, I digress a lot. So we got invited back. It was after one of their ghost safaris that they used to have, and I can talk about that later if you want. But we go back to their house. It was the first time I was ever at their house, and I was like 18, 19, and Ed starts telling me about the Amityville story, what happened to them the night they got home from that case. And so he's saying, "Joe, you want to hear the story?" It was like he heard this thunderous noise, like sheet metal rattling, like thunder. And it started getting louder and louder. He said, all of a sudden I see this big black mass, like 7 feet tall, almost as tall as a ceiling. Figured standard ceilings are 8 feet. And he said it was this huge black mass, and it came up out of the stairwell, which led down into what he called the Halloween room, which led also into the museum. And it comes up out of the stairwell, and he said, it's standing right in front of me. And I go, I'm like this. I'm like, well, where was that? And he goes, right about where you're standing. I'm like, oh God. And meanwhile, I'm every hair on my body is standing up, and I'm here I am, this big guy, 330 pounds. I was scared. I was pissing my pants. So he's like, he goes, yeah, it's not 9 o'clock yet. He goes, yeah, you want to go see the museum? I'm like, yeah. So we go down. He takes me down in the Halloween room where we actually had a real coffin. Down there. It's all decorated for Halloween. A lot of his paintings that he used to paint. This is one of Ed. Can you see it? This
I
painting.
can see it. Yeah.
That's one of Ed's.
So he was real good then with art, wasn't he?
He was. This was.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've never seen any of them. That's the first one I've ever seen.
Well, my friend Chris gave me that painting when he left the States. That was in his apartment above the Warrens' home.
That's awesome. He had some real. Ed had some real talent then.
He did. He was a
man of many hats.
He was an artist. They were both artists before they got into the paranormal field. But
right on. Yeah,
they made their living. He would drive by a house that looked like it was haunted or felt it was haunted, and this is how they used to make their money. The park, and then he would quickly sketch a picture of the house. Then they'd go up to the door and knock on the door, and Lorraine would knock on the door and say, we were driving by, and my husband loved your house, and he sketched a picture of the house, and they would invite him in, and then they would, give
Well, like if people back then would trust people and they would do
Yeah.
that. Today they'd probably call the cops or shoot you.
sure, probably the.
I don't know if I would just randomly knock on somebody's door today.
You show is freaky trying to draw my house right now. I don't
Yeah, well, that's how they got in, and they
See,
would
It was
make money
different
selling-
back then, though.
Right.
Oh, much different. We're
Yeah.
talking about probably
1970s and 1980s.
No, it's back to the 40s because the
Oh,
NESP,
yeah,
the New,
well, yeah.
the New England Society for Psychical Research didn't found that until 1952.
Wow.
So
So if you really think about it, they've probably over half a century, well over half a century of work.
a long time. I mean, I
That's
met them
awesome,
in
though.
'86.
And then
But-
to have Chris and you continue that work, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Chris is one of my best friends. We've known each other, almost 40 years. And he, like you said, he gets mad at me because he's like, my grandfather loved you. I'm like, well, yeah, he loved you too. He said, no, he didn't. But yeah, so that's the first time I met Annabelle when he took us down into the museum, and he was showing me everything. A copy had the Necronomicon, there, and I'm like, ah, and all these items. He's like, Joe, just don't. He's like, kids. He used to call us kids. He goes, don't touch anything. So I shove my hands in my pockets. My wife's hanging on to me for dear life, and we're looking around, and then we get to Annabelle, and she's in the case, and I'm like, he's like, don't stare at it too long, Joe. And I'm looking at it, and over the years, I've been like, yeah, fuck you. Yeah, oh, sorry.
You're good.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Everybody laughs until the one time they hear me slip and swear, and then they're like,
Well,
the Archbishop swore. I'm like, yeah, do y'all not realize I was a Marine Corps drill instructor at one point?
Lord, forgive me and bless all the little pygmies down in New Guinea. Larry the Cable Guy. So, I got a bunch of pictures, and one of the pictures you guys may have seen, it's an older picture about 20 years ago of me, and I'm standing there like this. I was much heavier then. And one of my friends wrote, wow, that's scary. And I'm not talking about the doll. I'm like, thanks a lot.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, so in another experience when I was in the museum with Laurel, Ed gets a phone call, and Ed's like, Lorraine calls down to him. So he goes, don't touch anything. I'll be right back. Now,
What'd you
meanwhile,
touch?
it's after, I didn't touch anything, but you ever hear of Fate magazine? I think it was Fate magazine. It was a paranormal magazine. I don't even know if it's still around.
And then it was like in the New England area.
Yeah.
Right? I grew up in New York, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm born and raised here in Connecticut, but he had these Fate magazine in these plastic sleeves, and they were pinned up on the rafter in a museum. And we're standing there, and my wife's like, look at that. And I look up, and the magazine starts swinging like this. All of them. And there must have been a dozen of them. And they all start swinging, and they're swinging like this. Ed comes back. He sees that. He goes, come on, kids. We got to get out of here. Because it was after 9 o'clock at night. What he called the psychic hours, between 9 o'clock and 6 in the morning, with 3 in the morning allegedly being the worst, the devil's hour. Because, Christ died at 3 p.m., so 3 a.m. is the opposite. At least that's the way I was taught. And like when Ron DeFeo shot his family, murdered his family in Amityville, it was like 3:15 in the morning. The clock stopped at 3:15 a.m. Whatever significance that has, I'm not sure, but that was my first time of meeting Annabelle and being in the museum. And I tell you, I think I had to change my shorts when I was done. But through the years, as I got older and hopefully wiser, because people ask me all the time, aren't you scared? And I said, in the beginning, I was terrified. And Chris will tell you the same thing. I said, in the beginning, I was terrified, but I was intrigued. And it's not like I was scared to the point where I don't want to do this anymore. I want to get out of here. No, it's like, I want to learn more, And, Lorraine told me on our first meeting, when I met her at that lecture, she looked at me and she said, honey, there's a reason you're here tonight. She goes, make sure you come and see Ed and I after the show. I need to talk to you. So, okay, here I am. And then I was 18. It was 1986. And so now everybody knows how old I am. So after the show, we ended up going across the street to the diner. There was a big thing that Ed was big with, was diners. Every time we finished a case or a lecture, we would go to the diner, and he would have his Jell-O, and Lorraine would have her cheese blintzes, and I would eat everything else. So she's looking at me across the table, and she's looking at me. She's reading my aura. supernatural glow that emanates from everybody's bodies. And she's reading my aura, and she could do that. And she's like, you know, you were meant to do this work. She goes, I can tell by your aura. She said, would you like to come and work with Ed and I? And I'm like, absolutely. I was over the moon. I'm like, yeah. You know, so that's when I was that's why I say I was kind of chosen by them and became one of their students. And they used to give classes in this place called Hawley Manor in Newtown, Connecticut, where the made infamous by the shootings back a few years ago. And we had this little back room that wasn't much bigger than a broom closet, and there was about 6 of us, including my wife. And Ed would bring in his tape recorders, and I have one of them actually. Chris gave me this as well. This is one of Ed Warren's tape recorders that I have, and I have some artifacts from them, and I'm going to bring them to New York to show people. And he would put in the tapes from the Amityville, from the cases surrounding the Conjuring movies, and this was our training. He would play these tapes for us, and the interviews with the homeowners, the reporters, as they walked around, and Lorraine giving her take on what was going on. And he would play them for us. And he's like, okay, this is what was going on there, kids, and this is what we do, and you got to protect yourself. And I was just sitting there like, oh my God, and he would play these demonic voices that would come out of thin air. This was the case from Enfield, England, the basis of the Conjuring 2. If you've seen the movies, I'm assuming you have. And these voices would come out of thin air. And he would play the tapes, and he'd say, what's your name? Tommy. And then this deep, guttural, raspy voice. Tommy, soldier, And he's like, yeah, no, you're not a soldier. You've never walked the earth in human form before, And these were the alleged spirits or demonic entities that would haunt the family. And then he would turn it off abruptly. He's like, all right, okay, kids, we don't want to give it too much recognition. He goes, but
well, yeah, you give it too much recognition, and
that's one thing I learned from him. Don't give these things.
Bad things can happen.
So I remember.
That's why I always tell these, especially when I tell new people coming into this stuff, I'm like, don't talk. They sit there and talk to them. I'm like, stop doing that. You're doing these real long EVP sessions. I'm like, stop.
Well, I remember.
And then they wonder why, like a month later, why they got something going on in their house, and they're calling me and Ron. I don't know what to do. Well, you did what we told you not to do in the first place. So.
All right, we've got a pretty good question right here from Nicole. She's asking, why do you suppose some videos or tapes can be cursed?
Because it was given too much recognition in the first place.
That's right. Electronic transfer. It can be.
Well, really, they have no. To them, they don't have any concept of this. It doesn't. They can do whatever they want. They've never lived on the earth. They're not a spirit.
Yeah, the wisdom of the ages.
Yeah, and so they can transfer any way they please. I mean, really, to them, if you think about it, you correct me if I'm wrong, Joe.
Yeah.
They can cross planes without thinking twice.
They can do whatever they want. I mean, I've been punched, bitten, scratched. 350 pounds. I was picked up and thrown 12 feet across the room like I was nothing. Now, Grandma's ghost or Casper, the friendly ghost, can't do that. They don't have that kind of strength.
No, not even close.
And I got up, and I tell you, I was more pissed off than mad. I remember I came home from a case once, and something was going on in my house. I get shit going on here all the time, and now I just like, leave me the F alone. And I said, but one case we worked on in 2008 was very bad. And I remember it would come and it would visit me. And I said, I know you're here. And I said, I tell you one thing, if you mess with my wife or my kids, I'm going to kill myself and come after you in the afterlife. I was so angry to say, because it would be here, and it would be in. This is like my main.
I don't mean to laugh, but I've been there. I've been in the same. I've been just as mad as you before, and I've said that and then thought about it and go, I don't think that's going to work. Actually,
it's funny to say, but that's how mad I was. I'm like,
I've been that mad. I've been there.
I said, if you got a bone to pick, you pick it with me. You leave my family alone.
Oh yeah.
And as far as I know, my family's been left alone. They've never been harmed or anything.
I've gotten lucky, as far as I know, to that aspect as well.
Biggest brown pants moment, Joe.
What's that?
Was that Ron?
Biggest brown pants moment.
Yeah, my biggest one.
Yeah.
Top notch.
Well, obviously it was in the beginning when I was a greenhorn and I didn't know much. Maybe it was the house in Bristol. I tell this story a lot. We were at a lecture one time, and Ed got a phone call, and he stepped out into the hallway, and he comes to the back door. He's like, Joe, come on out here for a second. He goes, I got a family in Bristol, Connecticut, that are terrified. He goes, I want you to go there with your equipment and capture as much detail as you can, try to calm the family down. Okay, Ed, no problem. So I headed right out there. I was there within, 40, 45 minutes. I get there and knock on the door. The family kind of opens the door a little bit, and I said, I'm Joe Franke, and with the Warrens, they sent me out here. The door flies open. They grab me and pull me in, and the whole family, I remember, just collectively was hugging me. Okay, so as I'm taken aback by this, I'm looking around me.
How old were you back then? In your 20s, probably?
I was probably, by the time he allowed me to go do something on my own, I was probably about 20, 21. I was with him a real young guy then. I was with him a couple of years, and I would go on cases with them and go on the lectures and go to the classes. So I was learning. He didn't just throw me to the lions.
Still, being 20, 21, that's still pretty young for.
Oh yeah, I was very apprehensive. I was excited. I was apprehensive, and I'm like, all right, what am I gonna see here? What am I gonna witness? So the family brings me in, and I'm looking around me, and all every item that these people owned, every belonging they had, every stitch of clothing, their bedding, toys, pots and pans, everything was in the living room. So their mattresses on the floor. The family huddled together, and they never left someone else alone, even when they went to the bathroom, because they said things would happen.
That's being scared.
I could tell just by looking around. They didn't even have to tell me. They say that if they go to the bathroom, they said they would see this demonic, evil face looking back at them from the mirror sometimes, and they would get scared. So what they would do is someone would stand out in the hallway and have the door ajar, and they would hold the person's hands, and they're in the bathroom doing their business because they were so afraid to be left alone. They had a baby, and this pissed me off actually, because the baby was in a little bassinet kind of a thing in the living room, and they said one day, this didn't happen when I was there, but one day they said they saw this black entity, actually two of them, come floating down the hall from the back bedroom, which they claimed was the epicenter of the activity. They said that back bedroom area is where they would come from, seemingly. And they said they saw it come up to the bassinet and like look down into it. And the mother just freaked. She grabbed the baby and just ran out of the apartment house. I think that's what prompted them to call Ed, actually. So I'm out there. I set up all my equipment and everything. And they tell me the back bedroom seems to be where it's worse. So what do? I make a beeline for the back bedroom. Okay. So, and I was using, obviously you probably know this, religious provocation. I was being careful about it, but I was doing what I was taught, and absolutely nothing happened. So I told the family, I said, I'm going to be here all night. I want you to go out there and get as much sleep as you can. And they did. They were able to sleep a few hours at least because I was there. And I had somebody else with me. I honestly forgot who it was at this point, but there was two of us there. And I don't think we caught anything. And I said, well, now I realize, of course, if they know I'm there, they know why I'm there, they're not going to show themselves. This happens to me all the time. I could hear things going on around me. I hear growling that would be coming from everywhere. You can't pinpoint, one room or one closet where it's coming from. You hear this deep guttural growling, and it's almost like it hides in the shadows. I'm like, well, it's got nothing to fear from me. I'm just a mortal man. But, I have an attitude about that. I'm like, look, I'm a child of God. I was made in his image. I said, that means I got God in my corner, so I'm not afraid of you. And I'll say that out loud. I'll say, I'm not afraid of you. I said, I got someone more powerful than you in my corner.
And that makes them mad. And that makes them mad too.
Yeah, it might make them mad, but
it makes me laugh though, because you got the madder they get, usually the weaker they were.
Yeah, and I'm like, and Ed, you say, I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to reveal your identity. And people was like, well, what does that do? I said, well, it shows.
Sometimes it all depends. At first, I've had them sit there and give me a bunch of false names. I've had them told me they were Jesus Christ before and laugh in my face.
Well, I mean, they don't tell you the first time,
but I've laughed 20 times before and not be told.
Yeah, yeah. But the way I explain it to people is, look, if you can get something like this to reveal who its true identity, now you've got power over it. Now you know what
you have dominion.
Now you know who it is. Now you have power over this thing.
Well, you got the dominion, isn't it? You got the dominion to command it at that point, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You command. I said, look, I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to get out of here. You're not welcome here. No one's. I'm not afraid of you. You know that I'm not afraid of you. You can kick my ass. You want to throw me across the room again? Go ahead. I said, I'm just going to get back up and get in your face again. You know, and people are like, oh my God, I couldn't do that. I said, well, you shouldn't do that. Now, this work isn't just for anybody.
No,
You know,
it's not.
and
No,
and I get,
and I hate to tell people that these days. People get mad when I say it, but
I was just going to say
not
that.
everybody belongs in this business.
Well, when I lecture, I get a lot of those paranormal teams that are sitting in the crowd because they know who I am and they want to hear what I have to say. And sometimes they may not like what I have to say, and sometimes they're wearing their T-shirts and stuff. And
see, I don't like. I've never liked the
hate that.
T-shirt thing, man.
I hate that. I know.
Look nice. You're gonna go to somebody's house. Look presentable, man. Look.
Well,
there's a point of professionalism, and to me, a T-shirt is not professional.
I don't have any shirts myself at all that say who I am, or who I'm with. But I don't want to. Any listeners out there that have T-shirts, I'm not trying to insult anybody.
I'm not either. That's just.
I know you're not.
It's my personal thing. I wear a collared shirt, but a lot of it has to do with me being a priest too. So if I'm not wearing my collar, I mean,
well,
most of the time I got a collared shirt on.
I tell people when I lecture, I said, listen, if there's anybody in the audience that's part of a team, or if I know there is people who are part of a team, I never single anybody out, but I said, listen, all I ask is that you're doing this for the right reasons and that you protect yourself and that you don't misrepresent yourself. I
see that happening a lot.
It happens all the time. I know it does. But, and the thing is,
it kills me and it makes me so mad.
Well, it does to me too, because that's
how you get somebody hurt.
Yeah. I mean, you got a family that's reaching out to you and they're depending on you for help. And when you're walking through that door, you're in over your head. But you're what I call a thrill seeker. You want to grab some stuff on camera or on video, throw it on your social media pages and say, oh, look at me. Maybe I'll get noticed and maybe I'll get a TV show or something. It drives me bananas, and eventually either that group comes to me or the family they were trying to help will get to me or one of my colleagues. And they'll say, oh, I had this group in here and something happened. The can went flying across the room and they picked up their equipment and left because they got scared.
I've seen that. I've seen people leave their equipment and run out before.
Me too. But it just drives me crazy. I'm like, look, I tell people, I said, look, I'm not trying to insult anybody. I said, if you're in the work for the right reasons, I said, get trained, find somebody.
That's like when Ron and I got with the group that Ron had, S.P.I.R. I mean, that's what we decided was not everybody's going to do everything right away. We're going to have, if you want to join and learn how to do some stuff, Ron has different groups that's contained within S.P.I.R. And not everybody gets to go on the stuff that we do. And the stuff is like, Ron's my lead investigator for the order. Yeah. And I think Ron, other than the sister Talia now, she started out as my secretary and my one of my, not really an investigator, she was more of a researcher, and she joined the order. Ended up joining the order as a sister, about actually going into nunhood when she's out of seminary. But I mean,
that's great.
We don't let everybody go on just anything.
Where did you study your demonology at, Joe?
Well, I studied. I know I hate that
Ron,
word.
He says it all the time, and he knows it just burns me. Ron's just smiling when he says it.
I mean, I studied under Ed, who was a demonologist. He taught me. He had all kinds of classes and books and tapes and stuff, and he taught me about demons. And I know there's God knows how many different kind of demons. There's not just a handful. There's bunches of thousands probably, different names. People are like, oh, don't ever say the name.
That all depends on the level of demon in which you're dealing with. Because you got different types, and if you're up into dealing with like lords and dukes and stuff, and we get to stuff like that, then you got to be careful of it. But some lower level, you really don't got to worry because you're not going to give them too much power saying their name because they really don't have any power.
Yeah, no, they don't scare me. I mean, I know it could make mincemeat out of me because I'm just a man, but I'm still here.
I've been there before where I felt like I got hit by a 2x4 on my side. I've had broken ribs, and I just I haven't quit being clergy though.
Well, yeah,
and I didn't even pick this. I mean, actually, it's kind of funny how I got Actually, when I got back into it, when I joined the order and I got back into it, and I joined the order after I left the Roman Catholic Church, and I mean, I was trying to get away from it, and I kind of, once you're called to it, you really can. There's no matter what you do, you can't get away from it. I'm sitting there with our late Archbishop, God bless his soul, Archbishop Mendego was sitting there. I was like, well, who's going to be our chief exorcist? And he turns to me, you are. I was like,
you are.
So, like, yeah, so I guess I'm not getting away from this then, huh? He goes, nope. And then that's when we turned to Ken and was like, hey, who's your assistant? I was like, you are, Ken. And Ken's like, oh.
Yeah. Well,
so
I
it's
mean,
just a long list of people getting thrown under the bus.
Yeah, I would never speak ill about anyone, usually at all, but I wouldn't do it public.
I was appointed. I never, it's not like I went searching for this as clergy. It's not something I wanted to do per se.
Well, like I tell everyone, I said, this isn't an occupation, this was a vocation. You know, I mean,
it's a calling.
I was called to do it, and people. I've actually had would-be investigators get upset because like, oh, I haven't had a case in like a year. I'm like, why do you care?
I wish I hadn't had a case in a year. You know how awesome that would be.
Why do you want a case?
Like stop ringing tomorrow, and I had like 6 months off. That would be awesome.
I mean, I don't know if he's listening or not. But,
wouldn't that be? I mean, Joe, if your phone didn't ring for 3 months, like, you'd be happy.
I didn't expect the call I got tonight from Ken, and I'm like, okay, well, send me as much information on it as you can, and let's set up another interview with the client so that I could be in it because I missed the original call. But I mean, I had a colleague say to me recently, and I don't know if he's listening, but I tell this story because it's important. He's like, Joe, he goes, I would like to be scratched or touched or hit or whatever just to experience that. And I go, are you freaking nuts?
Yeah,
I'm like, why would you?
Yeah, you say that until it happens, and they're like, "Yep."
Well, yeah, I know, but
that was a stupid idea.
After telling them a couple of more stories and answering a couple more questions and sharing these experiences I've had over the years, he's like, you know what? I rescind that. He goes, I changed my mind. I don't want that to happen. I said, no, you don't want that to happen to you. I didn't want it to happen to me. I
got smart and I challenged one to do it one time, and that's when I felt like I got hit by a 2x4 by a 300-pound dude as hard as they could to my side, and I ended up with 2 broken ribs and 3 bruised ribs, and it took my breath away. I mean, it brought me to my knees. I had to have 2 other clergymen help me back to my feet.
Well, I mean,
and I learned a lesson that day.
The involvement that I've had with exorcism is actually assisting and like holding the person down.
I was assisting.
I'm not an exorcist, obviously, so.
I was actually assisting the exorcist when that happened.
I remember it was Bishop McKenna. You remember McKenna? He's passed now.
Yeah, he passed 5 years ago.
Some years ago, yeah.
Some years ago now, yeah. Good man, though.
Yes. Fearless man, I tell you.
Oh, yeah.
He was the one that
he was back with Father Amort. He was back in the same school.
Yep.
Same.
Yeah, matter of fact, I'll throw another name at you. I'm sure you know Father Gary Thomas.
Yep.
The movie The Right is done. I spoke to him a few times on the phone. I had never met him because he's out in San Francisco, I think. And I remember him telling me, because I've learned a few things from him too, just in talking on the phone a few times. And he said, Joe, remember, there's got to be a way in, an entry point. Always. And I'm like, that makes a good sense. So I was just telling Ken tonight, I said, listen, let's figure out what these women's story is. I said, to have them try to remember when this started. I said, and then we could figure out how it started. I said, you have to start where you are right now and move backwards.
Yeah, always.
I said, we have to figure out, whether they
good research is a must.
Oh God, it's crucial. It's crucial, and
especially when you're dealing. I know you've dealt with it, generational stuff.
Oh God, yeah.
Because a lot of things,
curses are very real.
I mean, and generational. I've seen possessions go back generational. I mean, like 2 or 3 people in the family end up being possessed because of something the great grandfather did.
Yeah, I remember Ed used to teach me. He's like, Joe, he goes, spirits don't come on your time; they come on their time. So,
oh yeah,
I mean, you can play with a Ouija board or have seances or.
30 years later, and you're sitting there with your wife and kids. And, oh, hey, remember me?
Yeah. They'll come and they can attack when you're most vulnerable.
Always.
Or they'll go after
always
what
at
you
your
love.
Weakest point. Always when you're at your weakest point.
My buddy, a case that we worked on in 2008 through 2011. 3 years we worked on this case in Connecticut.
And that's normal.
My buddy got pissed off and he challenged it directly. And nothing happened that night, but shortly thereafter, things started happening in his home and to his children, who were younger at the time.
Oof.
And his younger son would have nightmares of seeing this thing. And, and he just got more and more pissed off. His marriage started to falter because of it, his financial. I mean, it just started ruining his
They'll
life.
break you down. They will break you down to nothing.
And I mean, I can't say that, I mean, obviously we all go through our ups and downs in life, but I can't say that anything's really happened that's directly affected by that. But now I'm starting to think, why am I having all these health problems now at 54 years old?
Well, you got to look at that. I'm 37 years old, and I have stents in my heart.
Yeah,
I should not have a stent in my heart at 37 years old.
You fight this a very long time, it can take you down piece by piece with the work.
I mean, I almost had my first heart attack. I was 35 or 36.
That's too young.
And I work out every day. It's not like I'm a fat guy. It's not like I eat a bunch of stuff. I'm not. I'm probably I'm probably 180 and I'm 5'8". I mean,
I was 180 when I was born.
Well, yeah, because he ate like children for a living. Joe came out. Joe walked out like 6'4", 350.
My mother was in a wheelchair her whole life.
Joe walked out 2 years old, 6 foot. Here, Joe, have another child to eat.
I've never been a small kid. Even when I was in high school, I was 265 and I was 6 feet something. Right now, I'm 6'3" and I'm almost pushing 300 pounds still. And I don't want to be this heavy, but even my doctor's like, you're only going to lose so much weight. It's your body. You have big bones. And
you're 6'4", though. I mean, it's not like you're a short guy. I mean, if you were 5'8", my height, and that way, I'd be worried.
Yeah.
But 6'4", Joe, come on, man.
I mean, I'm sure it's helped me. But I tell people when I lecture, I tell them, I said, listen, physical size and strength has very little to do with this. I said, you got to be strong spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. Because if you're somewhere trying to help a family and you don't know what you're up against, it could be nothing. It could be, the gates of hell. Who knows? And something happens to you, and I've had people just say, I can't do this anymore, and just leave. I'm like, okay, well, you weren't meant to do the work. I mean, this isn't all about getting something on video and throwing it up on your social media. And I don't put anything up on social media. I don't have a YouTube page. I have a personal Facebook page, and I have a Facebook page for.
I really don't put anything on mine other than like stuff for the order or like. I don't really do the social media thing, really.
I mean, I'm not. I don't have TikTok. I don't have Instagram.
I don't have any of that.
I don't, because people ask me, all the time, oh, send me your social media information. I'm like, well, I have a Facebook page. I said, why do I need to share this? I don't have that look at me syndrome.
A lot of this stuff should not be shared.
That's the only thing that you see of me post. It's just the charity work that I do, helping out with the special kids with cancer, raising money for treatments and all.
Well, that's different. Right?
That's awesome.
That's awesome. That's different. We're talking about like the actual work. Like, it's my belief. I didn't know. Like, especially when they say like these TV shows are going to put like a live exorcism. I am very against that.
Did you see what?
It's not something that should ever be broadcasted.
Did you see a few years ago what Zach Bagans did on Halloween?
Mm-hmm.
He did that show from the house in St. Louis where The Exorcist happened with that little boy Robbie back in 1949.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, somebody lived in that house because it was totally furnished. I assume someone lived there.
Oh, I must have rented. Somebody did.
Well, he must have rented the house for the weekend from him. Probably paid him big bucks. And he goes in there and they're using a Ouija board and they're challenging and laying on the bed saying,
I don't like that. I don't like people doing that stuff in general.
But then they
being on Halloween. Yeah, that's my thing about it.
Got to come back. I'm like, oh,
that's my whole thing about it, Joe. I feel the same way you do. You get all these people, and I chalk that up to inexperience.
That's when
because how dare you go to where somebody has to live with their family, and stir stuff up and then just leave.
Yeah, he did it obviously for the show. I mean, it's sensationalism.
Yeah, but then you got people doing it just because I saw him do it on TV. Now they do it all the time.
Well, yeah, that's basically the training that most of these groups get these days. They watch TV.
Yeah.
And, and I know people can get mad at me if they want, but look, I'm telling it like it is. TV, half the stuff you see on TV is bullshit anyway.
Believe none of what you hear and half of what you see.
Half of what you see. Yeah, that's right.
So, hey, Joe,
that's right.
Started off your first experience You had something at the age of 3.5. Did you
Yeah,
ever
I
get
call that a defined experience, and I'll explain what happened. So I'm 3.5 years old, and I know that because I was born in February. My grandfather passed in November, 3 years later. I was named after my grandfather. I'm Joseph Martin Franke. He was Joseph Martin Quinn, but I was named after him, and I was very close to my maternal grandfather. And I know he's a saint today, and he's watching over me on every case. But my grandfather, what he would do is every night before bed, he used to sit and he had a chair, not unlike mine here, in his bedroom, and he would read the Bible. And I have that Bible to this very day. I use it on all my cases. And my mother put me to bed. It was a Sunday. I remember because they were watching football, my mother and father. They put us to bed, and I came out, and I'm like, I had my eyes closed. This is my mom saying the story because I don't remember this part. But I came out, and I said, Mommy, what? What? Somebody called Joseph. What? And my parents just kind of looked at each other, shrugged off, said, he's dreaming, he's sleepwalking. So she puts me back to bed, and a few minutes later, same thing. I came out, Mommy, what? Somebody called me. And I remember seeing a light, and I hear this male voice in a very soft tone saying, Joseph, come with me. It is time. Come with me. And I remember it like it was 5 minutes ago. And I'll never forget the voice or the light that I saw, but I don't remember anything else because I was asleep. So my mother put me back to bed the second time, and the phone rings, and it was my grandmother. She's like, I can't wake up your father. My grandfather had basically, he fell asleep, they believe, in his chair, and with the Bible on his lap, and he had a heart attack, and he died. So I was born in 68. He died in November of 71, so I was 3.5. So I feel that I heard God calling him because we had that connection. I feel that's what I believe.
Certain family members, I'll tell you, I had the same kind of connection with my grandfather. We were very, very close. And like I was at boot camp when he passed away. And I knew something was wrong.
Yeah. You could just feel it.
Yeah.
Even at my young age, he used to pick me up. My grandfather, I think just about every morning, if not every morning, he worked for the railroad. He was only 5'8", but he's big strapping man.
That would be how cool would that be though? Being 3, 4, 5 years old, and your grandpa works on the railroad.
Yep.
That's like every little kid's dream. Like,
well, let me tell you,
that's
Bishop,
awesome though.
He would pick me up at a little before 5 in the morning, and the church was right down the street. So he'd pick me up because I remember back then there was no safety rules. I guess because I remember being in the front seat. He had an old
standing on the front seat of the pickup truck.
It was a Chevy Impala. Because I remember all I could see was the dashboard. I couldn't see over the dashboard because I was so small. And he would bring me to church with him because I remember sitting in the pew with him. And after mass, he'd drop me back off at the house, and then he would go to work. And he didn't do this every day, but he went to church every day. But I remember him vaguely. Remember those fiberglass tomato steaks that you put in the ground? I remember those. Yeah, I used to get.
My grandmother used to whip me with those.
Yeah, he did. I was a holy terror, and he used to whip me. I mean, he didn't hurt me.
I was a bad kid.
Well, that's why my parents got me into martial arts, because I had a temper.
No, so if we did today to our kids what they did to us back then, we'd be in prison.
Oh yeah. I remember I went to Notre Dame High School, and I went to St. Lawrence Parochial School. So I grew up in Catholic schools.
I went to St. Mary Our Mothers in Brooklyn.
Oh, that must have been a tough school.
Yeah. It's bad.
I remember one day I'm sitting in the front row. I'm in Spanish class, and Brother Francis Feely, I loved him. He was a great guy. He was a small guy, but I was cracking up in class. I was a class comedian.
We had all nuns. We didn't have no.
We had brothers and priests, brothers and nuns. Yes,
we had no brothers. We had all nuns. I'll never forget the little Sister Mary Joseph. She was like 4'11". Swear to God. She picked me up by my shirt, and my feet were not touching the ground. To this day, I'm scared of nuns. So they freak me out.
You know how many yardsticks I broke with my knuckles?
I still got scars on my knuckles today from like them turning it around and whooping you with the metal end. Like, but nobody cared back then. You tell your parents, you'd be like, "Well, shouldn't have smarted off in class."
I was getting to that. So I'm cracking up. I'm looking behind me, laughing with some kid. I look up. All of a sudden, I turn around. He slaps me right across the face. And I'm just like, sorry, brother. I was so embarrassed. And he just gave me that look, and then he went on teaching. And so, to your point, if I had gone home and told my mother, she would have slapped me again.
Yeah.
You know, today he'd be in handcuffs. I'm like, I was disrupting his class. I deserved it. You know, it didn't hurt me. It just hurt my pride. You know,
Yeah.
but he just slapped
I remember
me.
I remember when I was in Catholic school, they had paddles like that. Like for real, the Monsignor had a paddle. The one the Monsignor in the Rain of School had a paddle with like holes in it and stuff, like a real deal oak paddle, like no joke. And they would use it.
Oh,
And I'll never forget. I told.
Hey, man.
I had rich white friends when I lived in New York City when I was a kid, and I remember telling them one day. They told me once, like, you your parents can't do that to you. You can get them in trouble. I said that to my mom once. I was like, I'll call the cops. She threw a phone book at me. Was like, you better call an ambulance first and tell them there's a dead wop in my house. I was like, I can't even joke in this house.
you can call the cops, but you'd be dead before they get here.
Oh yeah, she'd have beat me to death. I mean,
Oh,
like
God, yeah.
they probably would have got away with it. And like when I grew up. Your parents would bring you around to neighbors and be like, if he messes up, beat him. Like, and nobody cared. They would do it. Like, nowadays, we'd all be in prison. Like, yeah, remember?
God, you're bringing back so many memories.
Yeah, but people see the kids today think we're full of crap. But that shit really happened.
Oh God, I've never hit my kids, and I think that's the problem.
Did you ever have a?
I hit my son once.
Yeah, where
I
sorry,
felt bad.
Mr. Ed ended up having to end up doing one of those big old slaps across your head or anything like that. Did he ever have a stern teaching day for you?
No, I respected him, and I never ever disrespected Ed. Like Chris said, he's right. Ed did love me like a grandson. They considered me like a grandson. I mean, they're like grandparents to me. But no, I never gave him a reason. You know, and I have obviously you guys know my personality.
That's true respect right there.
Yeah, but I would joke around. It's like, Joe, this is serious. He goes, Ed had a sense of humor like anybody else. But when he was serious, he was serious. So I'm the same way. I joke around a lot. When I lecture, I want to make people feel comfortable.
You got to be able to joke, but when it's time to get to business, it's time to get to business.
Yeah, but to answer Ron's question, no, he never hit me. Never.
So what was the serious time you ever saw on his face on these cases?
Well, let me tell you. There was one time we were at this inn in Bethel, Connecticut. It's no longer there, but he got into. This is the first time I've really seen Ed's temper, because he had a temper. And I'll tell you another example too if we have time. But he was. They had rented this place for their Halloween show, and it wasn't a case, but just to give you an example of his temper. Well, they double booked. The venue double booked. So when we got there, like an hour and a half early to make sure we got everything set up and all the audio equipment and everything, there was a wedding still going on.
A wedding?
Wedding was going on because they double booked it. Now, our show was supposed to start at 5, so it's about 4 o'clock. The wedding was going until 6. And we're like, and Ed, I hear him screaming at the owner, and the owner was an old Italian guy, no offense, but this guy was screaming back at him. They both were as red as tomatoes, screaming at each other. And Ed's using every F-bomb. He's like, I got people. I was out doing.
Did the Italian guy start screaming back at him in Italian? Was he off the boat, or he'd been here a couple of years?
No, he'd been here a while, but I think I would have bet money that one of them would have had a heart attack because he was screaming. And Lorraine
I've seen my grandfather get like that.
Well, anyway, I'm in charge of crowd control. You know, so when the people started showing up,
you're the cooler.
I was out there going.
He's the bouncer.
He
was
Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse.
I was there. Yeah, it's nice. Be nice until it's not to be nice, right? I was like, folks, I'm very sorry. There was a mishap with the venue. We're going to get started a little late, and most people were understanding. A couple of people were griping. So Lorraine's like, Joe, if somebody wants to leave and they want their money back, it's not a problem. So I made that announcement. I think maybe 1 or 2 people took me up on it, and they said, well, we don't want to wait. Well, most people, like, they wanted to see the show, and the people that
we're here now. They're not going to leave.
But you know, we're joking about it, but I was their security, really, because I was the one that kept all the cash in his pocket. You know, that night, I remember I had like 10 grand in cash in my pocket.
Holy crap.
Know, and what would happen is sometimes you get the lectures. And
that was a lot of, how was this, probably in the 80s?
This was 88, 89, 90.
That's a lot of money back then. Somebody would have knocked you over the head for 10 grand in the 80s or 90s.
Well, it wasn't easy.
Not someone as big as you, maybe, but like.
So, well, I mean, you get people, we call them people that take that liquid courage,
Oh yeah.
I would be at a lecture, and this wouldn't happen often, but every once in a while you get these punks in the audience, and you can always tell they're all dressed in goth, and they got the black fingernails and the black eyes, and I'm like, all right, you paid your money for your ticket, but they'd be back there and they'd be like heckling.
I can't stand people like that.
I would go up behind them and tap them on the shoulder and say, listen, I want you to enjoy the show, but if you open your mouth again, I'm going to ask you to leave. And I remember one guy's like, oh, I paid my money, I'm not leaving. I said, well, either you leave on your own or I carry you out. I said,
Did you then carry him out?
No, he behaved himself. I've never had to manhandle anybody. I mean, I'm a black belt, so
you're a big dude, and you're not a small guy by any means either, though. So not many people are going to challenge a dude 6'4".
Now. But yeah, I'm sure. But there was people that were disrespectful. Now, when I lecture, I've had people ask challenging questions, which are welcome. But I've never had
challenging questions.
I had one guy, and this is the only story I really remember that was even remotely close to heckling. But I'm showing a picture that I had taken myself. And I'm showing it at one of the library events. It's about a dozen years ago. And one guy's like, well, he goes, hey, hold on. He goes, I'm a photographer. I've been a photographer for 25 years. And I could tell that's been altered, that picture. It's been, And I looked at him and I wasn't too happy, but I maintained my calm. And I said, well, thank you, sir. I said, I took the picture. And I said, it's not been altered in any way. I said, so thanks for the compliment. And afterwards, he could tell I was pissed. Afterwards, he came up to apologize. I said, that's okay. I said, I just thought it was a little disrespectful the way you said it. It's not what you said, it's how you said it.
He's a smart ass.
Well, yeah, but
like he knew everything about everything.
You got to expect that. Now, fortunately, my buddy and I have never really had a problem. But when I get serious, people know I'm serious. And I don't like to come down on people because I always feel bad afterwards. I'm not like that. I mean, if it's one thing I learned taking 27 years of martial arts, it taught you. I tell people all the time: be humble, be respectful, be humble.
I didn't take martial arts to learn how to beat people up.
Yeah, I mean, I took it to stay in shape. I mean, at 350 pounds.
Honestly, when I took it, I took it for the agility because I was playing hockey back then, and the kata and Japanese martial arts gave us better agility on the ice.
Yep. I used to go to tournaments, and I fought in one tournament, and the guy was 230. I was 310. I outweighed him by what's that, 80 pounds? And I knocked the guy out with a roundhouse kick. I mean, you got 310 pounds coming at your head, and it was a legal move, and I had foot pads on.
But the guy went down. Tournament?
Yeah, it was during a tournament. So after that, I got in trouble by Master Kim because I got angry. And he told me, he says, you lost that fight. And I know what he meant because I lost it here. Yeah. The guy kept kicking me in the kidney area. So
I got mad. You got mad and threw a hard one.
The referee said, if you do it again, you're disqualified. But the guy, there are schools out there, unfortunately, like the Karate Kid, where it's like
they teach you to do that.
There's few and far between, but there are schools out there. At least there was then.
There still are now. They're very few, even fewer and far between now. But yeah, they teach. Well, I'm thinking even now, still, trust me, they teach their kids to blow knees out and stuff. I had my first knee surgery. Well, no, not really surgery. I got my first scope done at 16.
Yep. I was 17. I got hit by a drunk driver.
Well, I had a guy hit an inner crescent kick in the inside of my knee.
Oh, Jesus.
And then laughed. He did it on purpose.
Yeah, I never want to hurt another human being. I actually stopped. I did tournaments, but I only did katas. I did not do.
The funniest one that I had ever seen. I say funny because people get knocked out really isn't funny, but the guy got just like you, and it's actually my dad that did it. He threw a roundhouse on the guy, and knocked him clean out, and they were like, "Get the doctor!" And somebody in the background, all you heard was, "He is the doctor!" I fell off the bench. I'll never forget that. I think I was like 13 or 14 years old when it happened. And
that's funny.
But he was being serious. He was a tournament doctor.
I'm sorry, Ron. We're getting off topic here.
It happens with me and Frankie.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Just wanted to ask. All right, so you and Ed and Lorraine going out. What was the most activity that you have seen in
That's a good one.
or anywhere else.
Well, oh my God, there's so many of them. But one case I remember up in New Hampshire, we were at Colby Sawyer College, and the college had invited the Warrens to come up to do a lecture and then also stay in the Academy building, which had bedrooms, and they would frequently have their guests stay there. And the Warren, I didn't know, but the Warrens just told, "Hey, come on, kids, we're going to pick you up. You're going to come to Vermont or New Hampshire for the weekend with us." Didn't even know really where I was going until on the ride up. So anyway, we're there in the Academy building, and there was a lot of activity. There was a room with a lot of furniture in it, and we could hear the furniture being moved around. You go in there, and the furniture's like all moved in the middle of the room. Lorraine would sit there, and there was a reporter there, I remember, from the college or from the town. And through her mind's eye, she was speaking with this woman that was probably the housekeeper or the caregiver for, she called him Master Colby. But that night was very, very active. I mean, nothing bad there. It was just, it was human. You know, it wasn't inhuman spirits. And Hollywood wants you to believe are everywhere. But that one, it comes to memory because we weren't married yet. My wife and I weren't married yet. It was early on in my career. And we basically interviewed this spirit through Lorraine. She was talking to the spirit through the mind's eye. And she said, Lorraine would say, the woman is right over there by the staircase. And I'm taking pictures and all that stuff. And she's like, you could smell this lavender. And that was the woman's perfume. She actually said it.
Mm.
And you could smell it. It was very pungent. And Lorraine said, honey, you're dead. And the woman looked at her like, no, I'm not. I'm waiting. I'm taking care of Master Colby. I said, well, Master Colby's dead too. But she said the spirit did not understand. You know, she didn't pass over. She's there, still taking care of, as she said, Master Colby, Colby Sawyer College there. But the activity was it was cool because it was almost like you could hear things going on, like she's cleaning the house or moving things.
I got a question for you, Joe. Do you believe that some spirits, if they died abruptly, actually don't know they're...
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that obviously, as in life and death, we have our own free will, and some spirits think they have unfinished work.
Well, that's the kicker that God gave us, is that free will.
Intelligence, man.
I believe that they may know they're dead, but they don't accept it, and they're like, I still have unfinished work here, and they won't.
They refuse to leave.
Yeah. I mean, we have our own free will, and you know, I'm like, they won't accept the fact that they're dead, like almost like the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, where, you know, he knew he was dead, but he didn't want to leave her because they were so in love, and at the end he went on into the light and passed over. But I mean, that all comes down to your faith. I mean, that's what I believe. That's what I was taught my entire life, being you know, Roman Catholic myself. But other people may not believe that, and that's fine. I tell people, I said, look, I'm like Fox News. I report, you decide. I'm not here to change your mind. I said, you know, I asked people, I said, how many people here believe in ghosts? And just about everybody raised their hand. I said, how many people don't? And you get a few people here. I said, well, that's good. It's good to be skeptical.
I was a skeptic at heart.
I'm still
a skeptic because
I'm my own biggest skeptic. Yeah, I'm a show me kind of guy.
Yeah,
I know it exists. I know it exists.
And I know it's bad to be like, show me, but sometimes I love it because I get you know, being a priest, I get people all the time. Everything's demonic and everything's everyone's possessed, and I just get so sick of hearing it.
Right, but aren't you certainly are going to require something tangible before you just go. Hey Bishop, I need an exorcism. I'll be right there.
I'll tell you this: if somebody's telling you that they're possessed, they're full of crap. Because every exorcism I've ever been a part of, not done, been a part of, the person that was truly possessed had no idea what they were doing when the demon took control. And I only know one person that ever showed the person the video of what they looked like and did while possessed. And I'm not going to say who it was, because we're not going to go down that route, but that person ended up killing himself because they detested what they did so much under control that the woman ended up jumping off a bridge. And that right there is why I tell people, this is why most priests will never show you what you looked like if you're possessed.
Do you know about the Maurice Theriault case?
I've heard of it.
Up in Massachusetts. Well, Chris was actually directly involved in that. He was there.
Yeah. Chris told me.
I wasn't.
The first time I ever met Chris, that's when he told me about.
I think this happened in '84, and I didn't join them until '86. But Maurice, I mean, that didn't end well. Maurice, he ended up trying to kill his wife. He blew her arm off with a shotgun, and then he dragged her in the house, and she just thought, "I'm done," and he had the strength to turn the gun on himself. So she survived, but he ended up killing himself. But
I know
exorcism didn't work.
I've had exorcisms I've been a part of where 2 days later we're getting a call, had to rush back, and this is where the people I get an argument to say, "Oh, should you chase somebody if they get up or if they break free of the straps or whatever and they run off? Should you chase them?" Well, this was one that we actually took chase after the person and the girl ended up jumping off a bridge in L.A.
Wow.
So that's in one hand, and then the other. Sometimes should you go after them? Sometimes you have to, but other times should you let them go? I mean, that's a hard decision. That's a hard decision.
Yeah,
guys, we're having to wrap it up here.
I'm sorry.
Oh, we got to get Joe Franke back. Joe, if you get time, you want to come back?
Yeah. I do a lot of part 2s and part 3s.
We got to get Joe back, Ron.
I mean, Ron, I got a bunch of things I can tell you. I know I just told you a couple of examples, but the time I got picked up and thrown across the room, there was a ton of activity happening that night.
Yeah,
but
awesome.
I know we're out of time. I'm sorry. I get
before we all go, let's close the show like I always do. Yep. I always close it with the St. Michael's prayer again. Is protect ourselves, man. Things we talk about, things we do. We need protection at times. So, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our defense against the wickedness and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. Do you, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and the other evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking to ruin souls. Amen.
Amen.
And that was a great show, Joe. Dave, I'd have to have you back, brother.
I had a ball.
We're gonna have to have you back. I'm gonna tell everybody. And our next guest for our next show is gonna be he says he calls himself Father Ken. He has a show on here too. But we call him in the order as Archbishop Kenneth Torres is gonna be.
I call him He likes when I call him Padre.
Padre. Because this is Spanish, man. This is Spanish.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, that's coming like a lot of help with the order. I mean, to be honest with you, our international order was like nothing until Kenneth joined, and because he can speak Spanish fluently, I mean, the international order is bigger than the USA order now, believe it or not.
Yeah. Well, thank you, gentlemen, so much.
Thank you, Joe, for coming. We appreciate it.
I know you got more questions. Maybe if I come on again, if you have me. I'll answer.
Oh yeah, always.
Thank you. God bless you both. Thank you so much.
God bless you, Joe.
Okay, talk to you again. Bye-bye.
Stay safe, stay sharp, stay vigilant, everyone.
Bye-bye now.
Hi, I'm Archbishop Matthew RAWCLIFFE. Please join me and some great guests as we take a journey where I will spread positive and enlightened messages to educate, heal, and help others as we chat about various subjects with the help of God. Tune in every second and fourth Thursdays at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific on Paranormal King Radio Network.